Hello everyone, welcome to Teaching Pathshala. I hope you all are doing well. This is the eighth part of phytohormone in which we are going to discuss about the introductory portion of gibberellin and its signaling pathway. This topic will be beneficial for all the students who are preparing for the CSI and NET, GATE Life Science and the students who are pursuing for their MSc and the BSc courses. In the end of this video, we are going to deal with some CSI and NET question that has been asked in the previous year. The students who have not seen rest of the seventh part of this phytohormone series, so they can watch that overall part with the help of one playlist that has been named with a phytohormone for CSI and NET and GATE. So I will mention the link of that playlist in the description box as well as in the end of this video. Now let's start with the introductory portion of gibberellin. So for gibberellin we use the word GA, which is a short form of a gibberellic acid. So this gibberellin are the plant hormone that regulate various developmental process including stem elongation, germination, dormancy, flowering, flower development, leaf and the fruit senescence. Okay, we are not talking about the overall plant senescence, we are only talking about the leaf and the fruit senescence. So in this way you have seen that gibberellin is obviously a type of a plant hormone which used to regulate a various type of a different function in a plant, and that has been already mentioned in the first line. Second point is there are two classes based on the presence of either 19 or 20 carbon. The 19 carbon form are in general the biologically active form of a gibberellins. The gibberellins are one of the largest known classes of plant hormone. So first of all, gibberellin is going to have a huge family, like it is having a lot of member overall. So basically there is total of a two classes of gibberellin. First is going to have total of a 19 carbon and second class is going to have a total of 20 carbon. But although the 19 carbon gibberellic acid is supposed to be the biologically active form of a gibberellin which used to function in a plant. So this you have to remember that although there is a two classes, that is the 19 carbon and the 20 carbon gibberellic acid, but somehow only the 19 carbon gibberellic acid is biologically active and they used to perform a different type of a function in a plant. The next point, all known gibberellins are the tetracyclic and diterpenoids acid that are synthesized by the terpenoids pathway in a plastid and then modified in a endoplasmic reticulum and cytosol until they reach their biologically active form. So first of all, they are tetracyclic in structure. They are supposed to be generated from a precursor molecule that is obviously known as the terpenoids. That is why it is known that they used to follow the terpenoids pathway. And what they used to do, they first used to synthesize in a plastid, then they used to follow through a modification, and that modification is going to take place into the endoplasmic reticulum as well as the cytosol, and finally in the cytosol they are going to achieve their actual biologically active form. The next point is gibberellic acid is a dihydroxylated gibberellin. Hydroxylation also has a great effect on the biological activity of a gibberellin. In general, the most biologically active compound are dihydroxylated gibberellins which possess hydroxyl group on both carbon 3 and carbon 13. The meaning of hydroxylation, I think you all know that the adding of the hydroxyl group on a particular compound, that is known as the hydroxylation. So the gibberellin or the gibberellic acid, they are mainly regarded as the dihydroxylated gibberellin because they used to have the hydroxyl group on carbon 3 and carbon 13, and the gibberellin which used to have this hydroxyl group on carbon 3 and carbon 13, they will be regarded as the dihydroxylated gibberellins. Why di? Because there is a total 2 hydroxyl group addition, that is why we are using the term di, and hydroxylated means addition of a hydroxyl group. So the gibberellin which is going to have this 2 hydroxyl group on, or I mean the 1 hydroxyl group on carbon 3 and 1 on carbon 13, they will be regarded as the dihydroxylated gibberellin and they are the most biologically active compound. The next point is ethylene, which is again a type of a phytohormone. They used to decrease the concentration of a bioactive. It should be GAS, not gas. Okay, this is a mistake. In short form, it should be a bioactive GA, that is the gibberellic acid. So somehow we came to know that ethylene is going to show totally opposite effect that of the bioactive gibberellic acid. Now let's talk about the discovery of gibberellin. So initially it was encountered or it was identified by Kurosawa in Japan. So he was working on a fungal disease of a rice which is known as the foolish seedling. Okay, and he was investigating the mechanism by which this fungal pathogen which is known as the Gibberella fujikoroi, okay, and now it is named as a Fusarium fujikoroi. Okay, so he was investigating the mechanism by which this fungus pathogen lead to a foolish seedling which is also known as the Decani disease in a rice plant infected with this pathogen. So what actually happening? This Gibberella fujikoroi is a type of a fungal pathogen which used to cause a foolish seedling disease in a rice plant. And in initial time, this scientist, that is the Kurosawa, he was working on this disease. So what he found, that there is an abnormal growth by the fungi was due to the compound produced in a Gibberella fujikuroi. Okay, that means in the foolish seedling disease, there is a different kind of a abnormal growth in the overall rice plant. And he identified that this abnormal growth is just due to a compound production that was produced by a fungus which is known as the Gibberella fujikuroi. In the later time, this compound was isolated from the fungi, that is the Gibberella fujikuroi, and named as a gibberellin by Yabuta and Sumukui. Okay, so these two are another scientists who have isolated this gibberellin from a fungi. So currently there are 136 gibberellins which are identified from a plant, fungi and bacteria. So the first gibberellin was identified and isolated from a fungus which is known as the Gibberella fujikuroi, and now it is named as the Fusarium fujikuroi. अगर समरी की बात करें कि जिब्रेलिन का डिस्कवरी कैसे हुआ था, तो इनिशियली क्या है कि एक साइंटिस्ट था जिसका नाम था कुरोसावा, दैट इज इन जापान. तो वो उस वक्त पे एक फंगल डिजीज के ऊपर काम कर रहा था जिसका नाम था फुलिश सीडलिंग, और ये डिजीज जो है वो राइस में देखी जाती है. तो इस साइंटिस्ट ने ये देखा कि जो प्लांट थे, दैट इज ए राइस प्लांट, उनको अगर इस फंगस से इन्फेक्ट कर दिया जाए, दैट इज जिब्रेला फुजिकोरोई, तो उस प्लांट का जो ओवरऑल हाइट था वो ज़्यादा नहीं होता था, मतलब कि वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा छोटे छोटे प्लांट होते थे. तो समहाउ इस चीज़ को नाम दिया गया फुलिश सीडलिंग डिजीज. ओके, तो बाद में ये मालूम पड़ा कि ये जो छोटी हाइट हो जा रही है प्लांट्स की, उसके पीछे एक कंपाउंड रिस्पॉन्सिबल है, और वो कंपाउंड जो है वो फंगस के थ्रू सिक्रीट हो रहा है इन अ प्लांट बॉडी, और इसीलिए जो ओवरऑल प्लांट की हाइट है वो नहीं बढ़ पा रही है. बाद में जाकर दो और साइंटिस्ट, दैट इज द यबूता एंड सुमुकी, इन्होंने उस कंपाउंड को आइसोलेट किया फ्रॉम फंगस और उसको नाम दिया जिब्रेलिन. सो इनिशियली जो पहला जिब्रेलिन आइसोलेट हुआ या आइडेंटिफाई हुआ वो थ्रू फंगस हुआ, और अभी करंट टाइम में इट इज टोटली 136 जिब्रेलिन्स को आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया गया है फ्रॉम प्लांट, फंजाई एंड बैक्टीरिया. तो इसमें आप बोल सकते हैं कि जिब्रेलिन जो है वो प्लांट, फंजाई और बैक्टीरिया तीनों में मौजूद होते हैं. अब बात करते हैं बायो एक्टिव जिब्रेलिक एसिड्स के बारे में. तो बायो एक्टिव का मतलब क्या है? आपने देखा कि ये वन ऑफ द लार्जेस्ट ग्रुप ऑफ फाइटो हार्मोन है. तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि जितने भी जिब्रेलिक एसिड के मतलब आप वैरायटी देखोगे वो सारे के सारे बायोलॉजिकली एक्टिव हैं और वो काम कर रहे हैं प्लांट में, ऐसा नहीं है. कुछ ऐसे हैं जो कि इनिशियली कुछ मतलब फिलहाल के लिए आइडेंटिफाई तो हुए हैं लेकिन उनका फंक्शन मालूम नहीं पड़ा है. तो जो मोस्ट बायो एक्टिव जिब्रेलिक एसिड्स हैं उनका लिस्ट दिया गया है, एज वेल एज वो बायोलॉजिकली एक्टिव क्यों है, उसके पीछे कौन सा फैक्टर रिस्पॉन्सिबल है, उसके बारे में भी बात किया गया है. तो चलिए देखते हैं. So the bioactive gibberellic acid are the GA1, GA3, GA4 and GA7. So these four gibberellic acids are the bioactive gibberellic acid. Okay, and the presence of GA1 in various plant species suggests that it is the common bioactive gibberellic acid. So most common is the GA1. The 19 carbon form are in general the biologically active form of a gibberellins. So in the previous, I think in the introductory part, we have talked about that there is total two classes, 19 carbon and the 20 carbon. But the 19 carbon gibberellic acid are the most biologically active gibberellins. Third point is there are certain structural requirements for the gibberellin activity, and this is the condition that why they are regarded as the biologically active. So a carboxyl group at the carbon 7 is a feature of all the biologically active gibberellins. So the gibberellins which is going to have the carboxyl group, that is the COOH, which is regarded as the carboxyl group on the carbon 7, that gibberellin will be going to regarded as the biologically active gibberellin. And the gibberellin which is not going to have this carboxyl group on the carbon 7 position, they are not going to be regarded as the biologically active gibberellins. So now you understand the overall criteria that why some are biologically active and why some are not. In the figure you can see the location of a carboxyl group that is on the carbon 7. So if there is a presence of this carboxyl group on carbon 7, then obviously it will be regarded as the biologically active gibberellins. So the main thing that you have to remember is the different name or the different type of the bioactive GAs, that is GA1, 3, 4 and 7. They are the bioactive gibberellic acid. And second thing you have to remember that only the 19 carbon gibberellic acid is the most active one. And third thing, that there is a carboxyl group on carbon number 7 that is responsible behind the biologically activeness of this gibberellin. Now let's talk about the location of synthesis. So the first location is the apical tissue, that is in, you can say that in a shoot apex or in a shoot area. And then second location is the young leaves. Third location is that it has the highest level of a gibberellin that is supposed to be found in a immature seeds and the developing fruits. And along with that, it is also found in a root region. Now let's talk about the biosynthesis of this gibberellin. So the precursor molecule is the isopenoids unit, which is known as the IPP, and the full form of this IPP is the isopentenyl pyrophosphate. This IPP is a type of a isoprenoid. That is why we are saying that the precursor molecule for gibberellic acid is the isoprenoid unit. And this biosynthesis is going to include total of a 3 stage with the different cellular compartment, that is the plastid, endoplasmic reticulum, and last will be the cytosol. You can also call it as the isopentenyl diphosphate or isopentenyl pyrophosphate. So this compound mainly contain the 5 carbon. That is why sometimes we used to call it as a hemitarpene, because hemitarpene mainly used to have the total of a 5 carbon. Now let's start with the actual biosynthesis process. So it is somehow going to start with the isopentenyl pyrophosphate, which is a isoprenoid unit. So IPP is a 5 carbon compound, and after that it is going to isomerize in a dimethyl allyl diphosphate. In short form we used to call it as a DMAPP, and again it is also a 5 carbon compound. Then after that there will be the addition of a one more isoprenoid unit, that is the IPP, and finally there will be the generation of a geranyl diphosphate, which is known as the GPP in short form, and this is the 10 carbon compound. As because initially there was a 5 carbon compound, that is the DMAPP, but there was addition of one more isoprenoid unit which is again having a 5 carbon. So 5 carbon plus 5 carbon, obviously it is going to give rise to the 10 carbon compound, which is known as the geranyl diphosphate, and sometimes we used to call it as the monoterpene too, because if IPP is going to have a 5 carbon and it is regarded as the hemiterpene, then obviously the monoterpene will going to have the 10 carbon. So that is why the geranyl diphosphate is also known as the monoterpene. Again, this geranyl diphosphate is going to have one more addition of this isoprenoid unit, that is the IPP, and there is a generation of a fursunyl diphosphate, that is known as the FPP, which is a 15 carbon compound. So initially the geranyl diphosphate was 10 carbon compound, then again there is addition of one more isoprenoid unit, and it is also having a 5 carbon. So 10 plus 5 is also going to give rise to a 15 carbon. So this 15 carbon compound is going to be known as the fursunyl diphosphate, and sometimes we used to call it as a sesquiterpene. Okay, so this you have to remember that the fursunyl diphosphate is going to have a 15 carbon, because in sometime in CSIR net they used to ask that which compound is going to have a 15 carbon, or they will give you a name that the geranyl diphosphate, and then they will ask you that what different carbon is going to be present in this structure. So that you should remember. Then the fursunyl diphosphate, again it is going to face a addition of one more isoprenoid unit, and it is going to convert into a geranyl diphosphate. So initially the geranyl diphosphate was having a 10 carbon, and as because again there is addition of one more geranyl, that means obviously it is going to represent the 20 carbon. So geranyl diphosphate, that is the GGPP, is going to have a 20 carbon, and this is again going to convert into a int corene. Okay, and this geranyl diphosphate is going to enter or in a biosynthesis pathway of a gibberellic acid, and this overall process is going to take place in a plastid. So in plastid there is a conversion of this geranyl diphosphate into a int corene, and this int corene is going to be transported into a ER, okay, that is in endoplasmic reticulum. And in endoplasmic reticulum, this compound, that is the int corene, it is going to oxidize into a Ga12, which is again a type of a gibberellic acid. This Ga12 is the first gibberellin in a biosynthesis pathway in all the plant and the precursor of all the other gibberellin. So somehow the first synthesis will be of a Ga12, and from this Ga12 there will be the generation of the other gibberellic acid compounds. So the precursor molecule for the Ga12 will be the isoprenoid unit, that is the IPP, but the different type of a gibberellic acid is going to have a precursor molecule which is a Ga12. Now this Ga12 is going to have the hydroxylation on a 13th carbon, and then it is going to convert into a Ga53. So if there is a hydroxylation, that means the addition of a hydroxyl group on carbon number 13 of a Ga12, then it is going to convert into a Ga53. Now this Ga53 is going, obviously it is present in a cytosol, that you can see from the figure, that this Ga12 and the Ga53, after the synthesis they are going to enter into a cytosol, and the overall hydroxylation is going to take place in the cytosol itself. That means the Ga12 after the synthesis it is going to enter into the cytosol, and in cytosol there will be the conversion of the Ga12 into a Ga53 with the help of a hydroxylation. Now the Ga53 is going to help in the bioactive gibberellin synthesis, that is the Ga4 and Ga1, and along with that the C19 gibberellic acid arises by oxidative elimination of a carbon 20 in form of a CO2 with the help of an enzyme that is known as the Ga20 oxidase. In the previous slide, I have informed you that the most active form of the gibberellic acid is the carbon 19 gibberellic acids. Fine. So if there is a presence of a gibberellic acid with carbon 20, obviously there should be some modification to convert it into a carbon 19. So if there is a conversion of a carbon 20 gibberellic acid into a carbon 19, then obviously there will be the occurrence of a oxidative elimination process in which there will be the elimination of one carbon in the form of a CO2, and this elimination, that is the oxidative elimination, is going to take place with the help of an enzyme that is known as the Ga20 oxidase, because it is going to make a oxidation into a 20 carbon gibberellic acid, and finally it is going to convert it into a C19, that is the gibberellic acid, which is having a total of 19 carbon. So this you have to remember, that the which intermediate is going to be present in a plastid, in what state it is going to enter into the endoplasmic reticulum, and in what state it is going to enter or present in a cytosol. So the overall summary is that the bioactive gibberellin production is mainly going to take place in a cytosol, because that is the place where the different carbon 20 gibberellic acid is going to convert into a carbon 19. क्वेश्चन से रिलेटेड एक सजेशन मैं आपको यहाँ पे देना चाहूँगी कि आजकल क्वेश्चन के ओवरऑल जो पैटर्न है CSI नेट का, उसमें ये देखा जा रहा है कि एक पर्टिकुलर बायोसिंथेसिस पाथवे का या फिर कोई भी सिग्नलिंग पाथवे भी हो सकता है, वो वहाँ से एक इंटरमीडिएट कंपाउंड जो है क्वेश्चन में मेंशन कर दिया जा रहा है और पूछा जा रहा है कि ये कौन से पाथवे का इंटरमीडिएट कंपाउंड है। तो अगर आपको ओवरऑल पाथवे याद नहीं है, आप वो क्वेश्चन आंसर नहीं कर पाओगे। जैसे कि इसी पाथवे का एग्जाम्पल ले लें, मान लीजिए क्वेश्चन में आपको बोल दिया कि इंट कॉरिन जो है वो किस पाथवे का इंटरमीडिएट कंपाउंड है। आपको ऑप्शन में बहुत से फाइटो हार्मोन का नाम दे देंगे, आपको उसमें से एक सेलेक्ट करना होगा। तो अगर आपको याद नहीं है कि वो कौन से फाइटो हार्मोन का इंटरमीडिएट कंपाउंड है ऑब्वियसली इन बायोसिंथेसिस पाथवे, तो आप वो क्वेश्चन नहीं आंसर कर पाओगे। तो जो भी पाथवे या सिग्नलिंग पाथवे आप पढ़ रहे हो या बायोसिंथेसिस पाथवे पढ़ रहे हो, कोशिश कीजिए कि उसका ईच एंड एवरी जो पर्टिकुलर स्टेप्स हैं या इंटरमीडिएट्स कंपाउंड हैं, उनको भी आप अच्छे से याद रख पाएँ। और यहाँ पे मैंने थोड़ा शॉर्टकट में इस पाथवे को रखा है और समझाया है। इसका पाथवे एक्चुअली और थोड़ा लॉन्ग है, तो मैं आपसे ये रिक्वेस्ट करूँगी कि इसके पीछे जितने भी डिफरेंट एंजाइम हैं, लाइक अगर ऑक्सीडाइज्ड हो रहा है तो वहाँ भी एक एंजाइम का काम होगा, तो उस एंजाइम को आप देखिए, उसका नाम देखिए क्या है, उसको याद रखिए, क्योंकि आने वाले टाइम में लाइक कुछ एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर सकते हैं, माइट भी उस पर भी क्वेश्चन बन के आ सकता है। तो ये चीज़ मेरे दिमाग में तब आई जब मैं वीडियो बना चुकी थी कि ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि एंजाइम का भी नाम लेके पूछा जा सकता है क्वेश्चन। तो कोशिश कीजिए कि एक आप ओवरऑल जो एक लॉन्ग पाथवे है जिब्रेलिक एसिड का बायोसिंथेसिस पाथवे के बारे में, वो आप एक बार देखिए और देखिए कि कौन कौन से डिफरेंट एंजाइम्स इन्वॉल्व है इन बायोसिंथेसिस प्रोसेस, क्योंकि मैंने यहाँ पे एंजाइम्स आई थिंक मेंशन नहीं किए हैं, सिर्फ ओवरऑल प्रोसेस और उनका नाम मेंशन किया है। अब बात करते हैं एक केस के बारे में जो कि काफ़ी इंटरेस्टिंग केस है, एज वेल एज ये CSI नेट एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से भी काफ़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है, क्योंकि इस पे क्वेश्चंस आते हैं। सो द केस इज दैट द GA1 विच इज अ बायोलॉजिकली एक्टिव जिबरेलिन कंट्रोल अ स्टेम elongation. The precursor of GA1, which is a C19GA, that means it is going to have the total of 19 carbon in higher plant, is the GA20. That means the GA20 is going to act as a precursor molecule for GA1, which is a C19GA. And the enzyme is the GA3 oxidase, which is going to function as a GA3 beta hydroxylase, and it is to catalyze the conversion of a GA20 to GA1 by hydroxylation of carbon number 3. तो प्रीवियस वीडियो में हमने देखा था कि तो GA53 है या GA12 है, तो अगर उस एरिया में GA20 प्रेजेंट है, दैट मीन्स जिब्रेलिक एसिड विथ 20 कार्बन, तो अगर हमें उसे जिब्रेलिक एसिड विथ 19 कार्बन में कन्वर्ट करना है, तो वहाँ पे जो एंजाइम यूज हो रहा था वो था GA20 ऑक्सीडेज। लेकिन वहाँ पे कोई चीज़ मेंशन नहीं की गई थी कि जो जिब्रेलिक एसिड जो था वो C19 में चेंज हो रहा था वो कौन सा था, क्योंकि C19 के कैटेगरी में भी आने वाले काफ़ी जिब्रेलिक एसिड है, एक ही तो नहीं होगा, क्योंकि दो ही क्लासेस ही हैं, C20 और C19। दैट मीन्स कि एक क्लास में आपको टोटल 19 कार्बन मिलेंगे और एक क्लास में टोटल 20 कार्बन मिलेंगे, और इन्हीं दोनों क्लासेस में जो डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ जिब्रेलिक एसिड है वो प्रेजेंट है। तो यहाँ पे ये मेंशन किया गया है कि अगर हमें GA20 को GA1 में चेंज करना है, और GA1 किस क्लास में आता है, C19 के क्लास में आता है, तो जो एंजाइम यूज होगा वो होगा GA3 ऑक्सीडेज, और इसको हम नॉर्मली कंपेयर करते हैं क्योंकि ये फंक्शन करता है एज अ GA3 बीटा हाइड्रोक्सिलेज। तो आप इसको GA3 ऑक्सीडेज भी कह सकते हैं या GA3 बीटा हाइड्रोक्सिलेज भी कर सकते हैं। और इसका काम क्या है, इट यूज टू कैटेलाइज द कन्वर्जन ऑफ अ GA20 टू GA1 बाय हाइड्रोक्सिलेशन ऑफ अ C3। दैट मीन्स जो GA20 का कार्बन नंबर 3 है, अगर उस पर हाइड्रोक्सिलेशन हो जाता है, दैट मीन्स एडिशन ऑफ अ हाइड्रोक्सिल ग्रुप, दैट इज दी OH। ओके, सो हाइड्रोक्सिल ग्रुप अगर ऐड हो जाता है कार्बन नंबर 3 पे, तो वो GA20 जो है अब वो GA1 में कन्वर्ट हो जाएगा। फाइन, तो इस वे में हमने देखा कि GA20 अगर GA1 में कन्वर्ट हो रहा है, तो जो एंजाइम की ज़रूरत है वो है GA3 ऑक्सीडेज, या फिर आप उसको GA3 बीटा हाइड्रोक्सिलेज भी कह सकते हैं। The next point is the lack of the enzyme GA3 oxidase cause the dwarfism in a plant, because we have studied that the gibberellin used to help in the stem elongation. So if there is a lack of this GA3, That means there will be the no conversion of a GA20 to GA1, and we already know that GA1 is the most biologically active gibberellic acid. So if there is an absence of the most active gibberellic acid, obviously there will be the no overall action of the gibberellin, and that is why that plant is going to suffer from a dwarfism. That means the overall height of the plant will be of a very small due to the absence of a GA3 oxidase. So somehow the GA3 oxidase enzyme is a very important enzyme that is going to play a role to convert the GA20 into a bioactive GA1 gibberellic acid. There is one case of mutation, that is one of the dwarf variety, that is the dwarf mutant, which is known as the small l and e, and the wild type of this form, that is obviously showing a tall phenotype, is known as the capital L and small e. So one of the dwarf variety of a garden pea that was studied by the Mendel arises due to the mutation in a gene coding for the GA3 oxidase. So what happened, actually there is a generation of a mutant variety of a pea plant that is going to show a dwarfness in a overall height, and this dwarfness was seen due to the mutation in a gene that was coding for an enzyme that is known as the GA3 oxidase. So the gibberellin is going to play its very important role in the stem elongation of a plant, and this overall process is going to be successful if there is a presence of the biologically active gibberellin that is known as the GA1. And the factor behind this activeness of the GA1 is that the conversion of a GA20 to GA1 with the help of an enzyme that is known as the GA3 oxidase or the GA3 beta hydroxylase. So in any condition, if there is a mutation in this enzyme, that is the GA3 oxidase or the GA3 beta hydroxylase, there will be a overall suffering of a plant that is going to show a dwarfism in the overall height. There is a finding of some inhibitor compound that used to inhibit this gibberellic acid, and these are the phosphone D, AMO1618, psychosil, which is known as the CCC, then there is a encimidol, and last is the paclobutrazole. In the next video, we are going to talk about the signaling pathway of gibberellic acid as well as their different types of function, and I think some more point has been left, so we are going to discuss that points too, because this video is already very long, so I can't include that portion in this video. So now let's move to the one CSI net question. So the question is, the dwarf pea plant, which is represented as the small l and small e, used by Mendel, was defected in which one of the following enzyme involved in the gibberellin biosynthesis? See, whenever there is a mentioning of a gibberellin biosynthesis, you have to prefer that they are talking about the biologically active gibberellin, because there is a no use of that kind of a gibberellin which is not going to show their activity biologically. So always there is a mentioning of a biologically active gibberellin. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to pick a particular enzyme in which if there is a defect in that enzyme, there will be the generation of a dwarf pea plant, and that mutant was known as a small l and small e, and this was mainly found by the Mendel. So we have already discussed about this case in our previous slide. So the option is, first option is the int chorin synthase. So this is not that enzyme which is defective and which will lead to the dwarfism in our plant. B option is GA3 beta hydroxylase. So this is the correct option, that the GA3 beta hydroxylase, if there is a defect in this enzyme, the plant is going to suffer from a dwarfism. In third option, they have mentioned the GA20 oxidase. So you should not get confused between the B and the C option. The GA20 oxidase is only used when there is a conversion of a GA20 to GAC19. Okay, but here we are going to talk about the GA20 conversion into a GA1. Last option is the int chorionic acid hydroxylase. So this option is also wrong. So the correct option is the answer number 2. The option A and the option D enzyme, there seems to be that they used to belong from the biosynthesis pathway of a gibberellic acid. So that is why I was suggesting you that you should go through a long pathway of biosynthesis of a gibberellic acid, so that you could able to know the different enzymes that are involved in the biosynthesis pathway of a gibberellic acid. I hope this video was helpful for you. You can share this video with your friends who are preparing for the CSIR NET examination. And if you are new to my channel, you can subscribe my channel for getting more different videos on CSIR NET and GATE. And along with that, don't forget to hit that bell button so that you will be notified with my each and every new video uploads. Thank you for watching this video.